Welcome back to At the FarmGate. I'm Jack Hughes, and in this episode, we're digging into biosecurity, not just at the gates and boot dips, but the real human side of farm protection. We're joined today by Amy Davies, a fellow biosecurity advisor at LiveTech Systems, who recently led a standout masterclass as part of the Farmers Weekly webinar series. From fatigue to fortitude, tackling biosecurity challenges, the sessions didn't just focus on what to do, it explored how mindset, behaviour, and training can make or break farm defences. So I'd like to introduce Amy and ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role here at LiveTech.
Hi Jack, thanks so much for having me. I'm Amy Davies, a fellow biosecurity advisor working alongside Jack. My role at LiveTech, I suppose, has quite a lot of moving parts. It's quite varied, which I love. But mainly I work within the services team, helping with contingency planning and supporting our key clients, getting out on farm, talking with farmers, working together to build plans that actually work for them. So it's hands-on, and I love being able to help where it really counts. I also spend a lot of time creating industry training, so like biosecurity training and poultry welfare. We've got a brilliant team with lots of experience and knowledge within industry, so it's great to turn all of that knowledge into something that's useful for others out in the field.
Oh, thank you very much for that, Amy. So in your recent masterclass for the Farmers Weekly, you said biosecurity begins with mindset. What does that really mean in practice, and why is it so crucial to the industry?
Absolutely. When we say kind of biosecurity begins with mindset, I think it starts long before any physical measures are put in place. It's about how we think, plan, commit to protecting farms. And if we don't truly believe that biosecurity is essential, then even the best systems won't be effective. So, for example, you can install boot dips across the farm, but if you don't understand their purpose or use them correctly, they almost become meaningless. So the mindset is believing the importance of biosecurity, and being proactive is what drives the consistency and that effective action. So I suppose without it, we're already given potential for contaminants to take foothold, really. So yeah, it all begins with that mindset.
Yeah, and obviously that's a major factor in the industry, is to turn training from a compulsory measure and something
Exactly.
that we believe they have to have, just to tick a box, but to actually achieve what's been put in place on farms and why.
Yeah, it's that key word, isn't it? It's why are you doing this? Yeah, absolutely.
So many farms have all the right structures. We know that, they have the gates, they have the boot dips, we have barriers. This is all major parts of assurance schemes and the industry, but still struggle with outbreaks. We are still seeing avian influenza getting into not only free range birds, but into housed birds as well. Yeah. So where do you think the disconnect lies between, the infrastructure and the why?
Yeah, I think going back to that mindset again, I think the disconnect often lies in behaviour and consistency. I think having the right tools and structures is only part of the equation, and how we use them is what really matters. And I think, you can have all of the state-of-the-art wheel washes, UV lighting, disinfection, boot dips, but if they're not used correctly in consistency, their effectiveness drops dramatically. Take disinfectants, for example. Dilution rates aren't just there as guidelines, they're crucial to ensuring that the product actually works for its intended use. So if we assume that the equipment will do the job without us using it properly or maintaining it, then we're leaving gaps in our biosecurity. I think seasonality might play a role within that disconnect. With diseases such as avian influenza, I think we might have become accustomed to high seasons or high risk seasons, which can lead to complacency during quieting periods. But AI doesn't disappear like other diseases. They circulate even at low levels at those kind of low pressure times, and obviously that's when biosecurity can lapse. So that's when farms are most vulnerable. So I think there's a disconnect there in understanding that actually diseases are here all the time, not just at those high risk periods.
Yeah, and I think that leads into, our ethos in Biosecurity 365. Everybody should be biosecure all year round, not just at the heightened times. There is pressure from other challenges which do come, each and every day, and we'll try and get into these units. And, and we, as an industry, we need to start looking at the smaller things.
Yeah.
And then the bigger things should look after themselves. That's not saying they will completely, but if we manage the day-to-day biosecurity, out of the AI season, then when AI season comes, it's just normal. It's routine, and people
it's embedded, isn't it?
And it's embedded.
Yeah.
And we just talked a little bit there about the disconnecting. People who have, all of the infrastructure in place, but not actually adhering to it. And do you see that? I see it sometimes as, a placebo effect as such. We have foot dips, we have an automatic wheel wash, which means we have done something, which means it's achieving something, which actually, if it's not working correctly or being used correctly, it's not achieving the goal that it's set out to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we see that quite a lot out on farm day to day. Yeah.
You talked a little bit there about, biosecurity fatigue and when we're out of season and the threat feels low. How do you help farmers and staff stay vigilant without becoming overwhelmed?
I think biosecurity fatigue is very real, and understandable. I think disease threats don't follow a calendar, and they're present 365 days of the year, which means our biosecurity efforts need to be just as consistent. But that doesn't mean it has to be exhausting. So I think sometimes small reminders can go a really long way, reinforcing the idea that disease pressure is always there, even if it's low, helps keep biosecurity at the front of their mind. But just as important is recognising and celebrating their good work and what they're already doing out on farm. I find that encouragement, support and practical advice on their day-to-day decisions can make a huge difference. It's about making biosecurity feel achievable, and that might mean simplifying procedures. It might be using, visual cues, building routines and kind of sharing their success stories. Ultimately, it is about creating a culture where biosecurity is seen not as a burden, but as like a shared responsibility, where farms feel supported and, most importantly, not judged. So it's those small reminders and helping them along the way all year, not just at those heightened times, is really important. And that kind of keeps them overwhelmed. It helps.
And I think, obviously, like you said, just sometimes being that one-to-one or,
absolutely
with them helps them understand that not one shoe fits all, and certain aspects what work on one family and that work on another, and working with staff members to achieve what is achievable on that farm.
Yeah. And like you say, it's not all farms are different. So it's not one thing might not work for them, but it might work for their mate down the road, and it's communicating that and sharing that knowledge.
So do you think if farms, we've touched a little bit there on fatigue and following protocols all year round, and this is probably an open question, but do you think if we carried on and we did it from January to December and we all stuck to the same protocols and working protocols, that we wouldn't need, or there wouldn't be as much of a need to do the mass culling?
That's a tough one. It's like asking how long is a piece of string. I think disease is unpredictable, but also very opportunistic. That there's never a 100% guarantee that following protocols will prevent every outbreak. But I do believe that consistent biosecurity is one of the strongest tools that we have to reduce risk. If protocols are followed year round, they become second nature, like riding a bike or washing your hands. That kind of behavioural consistency leaves fewer gaps for potential disease. And it's not just about kind of reacting to high risk periods. It's about building a resilient system that's almost always on guard. It's almost like when you lock your doors at night, if you hear a burglary's happened nearby, you leave your house open for the rest of the time of the year, your home is vulnerable. It's the same with farm, really. It applies that quieter times can lull us into a false sense of security, but pathogens don't take holidays, they're always there. So while consistent biosecurity might not eliminate the need to cull entirely, it can significantly, I think, reduce the likelihood and the scale of outbreak. So, potentially saving more farms. So I think,
yeah, and I mean, avian influenza, salmonella, all of these challenges, they are around, and seems to be this year they're around all year round and not gone away. They are very opportunistic, and they will get in when they can get in. And I think, if protocols are not easy to manage or easy to follow, sometimes people will bypass a barrier system or leave a door open, or create an opportunity for this virus to get in. So we do have to be on the ball all the time. And the problem is when biosecurity becomes hard, or people do get fatigued, that's where the word comes from, and they will bypass those measures. But it only takes that once. And one thing I try to speak to our customers about is, do you want to be able to go to bed at night knowing that you've done as much as you possibly can?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think if a situation does occur where it finds its way in, and God forbid, you end up having to be called out, the last thing you need to be doing is thinking, did I do enough? Or what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
So obviously you're a major factor in LiveTech's training program and keeping people on the training program and getting new content out there to the industry. So let's talk a little bit about the training. And what does effective biosecurity training look like to you, and how do you make it stick with people day to day?
So as Jack said, super passionate about training, but more importantly, I believe that training should be shaped around, I suppose, the person receiving the training and the business receiving it. So I think effective biosecurity training isn't about ticking boxes. It's about sharing useful, usable information that people can actually apply on farm, even if it's just one small piece of information or advice that sticks and makes a difference. That's a win. I think, training comes in many different forms: online courses, on-farm training days, those one-to-one sessions, podcasts like this, for example, or even just a quick message on the village local WhatsApp. That's training. And what matters is that it's accessible, it's relevant, and it's practical, especially in a really busy, fast-paced industry such as farming. I think making it stick, it needs to feel real and it needs to feel relatable. When someone recognises that what they're learning is something that they're already doing already, it builds their confidence and it reinforces that actually they're on the right track, and it does encourage them to keep going. Keeping training current, visible through, regular refreshers, peer-to-peer learning, even those visual prompts around farm, it helps embed it into daily routines. Training's every day. You're doing it subconsciously without knowing about it, but it's about creating a culture where it does become second nature and not just an afterthought. But it's super, super important to keep up to date with training, and you're probably doing it without thinking about it.
Well, every day is a school day.
Every day is a school day.
Every day is a school day. So obviously within the industry, we now have, certain poultry passports and the line training passport, and ways of people building a training portfolio where they're building upon information that they're gathering. But a major factor in our industry is staff turnover. It isn't easy to keep staff. It isn't easy to get staff. And we're finding that harder and harder in certain ways. So a lot of what people tend to think about training is it's just for compliance. Obviously, we have a certain percentage of the industry who want to learn and they want to progress and they want to understand. So do you think that good training actually builds confidence in staff, or is it a management issue where we're just doing it to comply?
Yeah, I think we see this quite a lot, don't we? When we're out on farm, but also when we're out training. I think while compliance is important, it is. I think effective training goes beyond ticking boxes. It builds confidence in both individuals, but also the wider industry. Training helps people stay current. It shares knowledge, and it kind of makes you feel empowered to make those kind of informed decisions. And it is really about growth. It's, if we're not learning, we're not evolving. Like you just said a second ago, Jack, every day is a school day. And on consistency learning, and I do love that, because knowledge really is power. But I think confidence grows when farmers see what they're already doing aligns with best practice. So within that training, it reinforces their existing routines, and it validates their efforts and shows actually that they are doing the right thing. And I think that's incredibly powerful. Training also brings people together, not just farmers, advisors, vets, and other people within industry with different experiences and perspectives. So that shared learning environment fosters that support, and it builds trusts, and it strengthens the confidence across the board, not just on one particular farm. We might not be able to prevent every challenge, but we can be confident that we're doing our best, like we said earlier. So as much as I agree that we do it for compliance is there for a reason, I suppose we could say it like that. We are trying to make it a more resilient industry. So I think it's a bit of both.
Which is fair enough, that with how many people we have coming in and moving around in the industry, it is hard to keep people trained in the right way. So, and again, a lot is, we need that to comply with certain assurance schemes. But I do believe more and more people in the industry are looking to better themselves and to learn. But again, in old ways of training, or general ways of training, it's always been, right, let's get 10, 12 people into a classroom. And to me, sometimes that's like going back to school. People they don't have the time to be there, they don't really want to be there, or again, they don't feel that they've got the confidence to ask a question.
Absolutely.
So you find yourself going into these rooms when there's 10, 15, 20 people in, and you'll always get the same two people asking a question, which actually stops other people from asking questions because they don't have the confidence.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think with the new ways we're looking at training and bringing it to the table is a fantastic way of achieving more people engaging.
And that's what we need to do, isn't it? It's flipping it on its head, isn't it? And I suppose it's like that word training. Like if you say the word school, you almost get that, not anxiety, but it's like, or classroom. It don't look at it as training. It's literally just you upskilling or just refreshing your knowledge, and that comes day to day anyway with any job, and especially in farming, we have so many different challenges and things that we actually have to think about. And actually, when we do come together and we sit in a room or we sit one-to-one, that gives us the opportunity to actually think about other things that we might not think about. So I think the word training just needs to be flipped on its head a little bit, and actually it's just us supporting and helping.
So on the back of that, I mean, one of our key messages to the industry and to our clients is make the right thing the easiest thing. So have you got any examples where we're simplifying processes and making a big impact in what we're doing here at LiveTech?
I suppose in biosecurity, simplicity is the key to consistency. And I think one example we always look out for when we're on farm is boot changes or footwear changes, for example. I think making a protocol easy, we see a lot of people having to clean and disinfect their boots when they're going from one specific area to a live bird area, and make that more simple. The fact that you don't have to get the muck that could be potentially contaminated constantly scrubbing outside of your deep soled welly, just change your footwear, make it easy. Leave them dirty ones there and put the footwear on that you know is specifically for that area. It makes that process easier, it's quicker, and it removes the risk. So, you know, another great example is color-coded clothing and footwear for different zones. You know, we in the day-to-day life, we might get confused. Have we just worn that pair of wellies there? I can't remember. You know, make that easier. Have color-coded stuff for your staff and visitors and contractors, that's something that they instantly know, and what belongs where, and also what belongs to them. It also kind of makes them feel part of a moving cog, so there's, you know, no confusion and no cross contamination. I think a big one on site is clear signage and posters that make a real big difference. I think when procedures are easy to follow and understand, people are more likely to stick to them. And I think we do talk about making protocols easier, but actually a big part of this is actually making protocols easier to understand. And then that's when you'll get more people wanting to make that difference and follow them, because it is easier. And the same goes for training. You know, if it's practical and straightforward, it's more likely to be remembered and applied. So, you know, simplifying things doesn't mean we're cutting corners, though. It just means that we're making biosecurity, you know, accessible and repeatable for everyone to do as part of everyday routine.
And I'd like to echo a little bit about what you said there around making training easier. You know, you've played a major part in it, Amy, and, you know, we've now released the biosecurity training course, the online self-paced, which I think is a game changer, and it brings people and more of the wider industry to be able to get staff, managers, farm staff, labourers to be able to just sit down at their own time, rather than pulling everybody off the farm and going then sitting in a classroom, as we've spoke about earlier. It is a self-paced way of doing things. So I think, you know, not only are we helping people on farm with advice, we're now trying to help in the training side of things to make that a lot easier, but also containing the right content to get the users to understand why and how all of this is achievable. Yeah,
definitely. It's so important. So important.
So you've now been with Live Tech 1.5 years?
Yeah, year and a half,
a year and a half. And, you know, you've played a big role in introducing the digital biosecurity assessments tool, our EBAS system. How are you finding rolling that out to farmers? Is that identifying gaps? Is it taking meaningful action? Are people listening to it?
Yeah, I think being out actually trialing it on farm has been great, and getting perspectives from everyone across industry, you know, from area managers to farm managers to staff that actually work on farm. And I think that they are seeing the EBAS tool as a tool, and that being designed to bring that practical on the ground support, by helping them evaluate, you know, biosecurity risks in a really clear, actionable way. You know, they find it quite good because of the series of, you know, self-guided questions, those in-depth questions that maybe they might not have thought about before because they're so busy running, you know, that farm day to day, that actually they're realizing that, yes, the physical structures are there, but crucially, our EBAS system incorporates that human behaviour side of thing, which often is where the big vulnerabilities lie. And I think they really do realise that now with this tool. And I think that's what sets it apart, is that, you know, you can have the most advanced structures in place, but if it's not used properly and consistency and correctly, you know, it won't work. And I think that's what our EBAS tool really does shine, and it does highlight that to farmers on the ground. And again, with those, you know, tailored recommendations that it gives afterwards, really kind of helps farmers sit down and assess and think about, okay, that could work practically for me, but actually that might not. But it gives other suggestions and recommendations about what, you know, they can do on farm. I think the biosecurity score that's generated in the system, it really reflects what's actually happening on farm, not just about what's in place. So it identifies those weak points and those areas for improvement without expecting perfection. I think that came across really nicely when we were going out on these visits, that actually what can we do, but it's not expecting the perfection. And we don't aim for that 100% because it's real life, and it's real world farming. It's complex. So but the system is designed there to flag those risks really clearly, just like disease itself. It's always there. So I think the system is really transparent for farmers to use out on site and just get down to the nitty gritty and within the real world.
Yeah, I think one thing what really came to me in our conversations last week as well is around, people are using the EBAS and they're generating, the risk factor for the farm and understanding what's going on. But I think during our conversations, another light bulb moment came to me in the regards of training, how the EBAS could be used and
as a training tool.
As a training tool and as an onboarding tool for new staff to understand what actually, to get a perspective on what they understand is biosecurity.
Yeah.
Users could give new staff members the tool and say, right, go and carry this out with no outside influence. Nobody asking them the question. You go and give us the feedback on what you believe this farm has in place.
Yeah.
And I think by that, you're not just following what the farm manager who's been there for 40 years is saying, or another member of staff. You're following your own mindset in understanding. Yes. I think this is how it's working on this farm.
Yeah.
Which could actually highlight more risk than what the farm owner has found themselves, because they've become complacent or they've become used to the protocols what are in place, which times change, people change. Yes. Things can become easier, things can become harder, the more rules and regulations that come in, but that doesn't mean they're not all achievable.
Yeah, and like you just said, Jack, it brings everybody into using the tool. It's not just about here's a set of rules and follow them. It brings everyone's perspectives and ideas into the tool, which is fantastic.
So just to end us now on this podcast, if you could leave, farmers, producers with one simple takeaway about improving biosecurity, what would your point be?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think make biosecurity a daily priority. I think it's something that's embedded into everything you do without needing to think twice about it. It should be second nature, like putting your seatbelt on when you get into a car. And I think it's just as important to make sure that everyone on farm is aligned with that mindset. Biosecurity only works if the whole team is on the same page, working towards the same goal. And I think remembering that I heard a great phrase that says biosecurity is only strong as its weakest link. So, even the best systems can be undone by one small lapse. So, but when everyone understands the why behind the actions, it feels part of that solution that, when that's, that real protection happens. And I think in terms of training, embrace learning, even when it feels uncomfortable, because knowledge is always worth having. And I'll probably leave it with that.
Perfect. So that's it for today's episode at the FarmGate. I'd like to thank Amy for joining us and letting the industry know what you do and what part you play in live tech. Your passion really does shine through. So if listeners are looking to strengthen your farm's biosecurity, you want practical support, you want help with training, we're here to help. Get in touch with us today. And if you found this useful, follow the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And thank you all for listening.